We're through 12 weeks now of the NFL season, and we had, once again, another very exciting week with a lot of upsets, a lot of crazy games, and we had our first snow game of 2024. We're going to sit back and talk about these games, talk about the best plays of the week, and we're even going to talk a little bit of fantasy football this week. Welcome to this week of K&A Football. And now for the third straight week, Austin is not here. And I promise you guys, he is not dead. He did have pneumonia. He was on the verge of death, but he is alive. He is just at New York now, so he's not with us at the moment. But now for the second straight week, we're going to have a special guest today. Last week, as we know, was my dad. And this week, we have a first-time guest of the show, an avid NFL fan, but definitely an avid Bucks fan. My cousin, Quinton Summers. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, hey, I appreciate it, Caden. And hopefully I can fill in and do this show some justice because I got some big shoes to fill here today.
I think it's fair to say that you might know a little bit more, maybe even a little bit more. I think it's fair to say you know a little more football than me. This offseason, we were on vacation in North Carolina, and you were telling me, hey, go ahead and get this Jaden Daniels guy in fantasy in your dynasty league, go do all of this. And lo and behold, I did that, and lo and behold, he's been phenomenal, and my dynasty team is ranked number 1 right now, so I have to give you a little bit kudos to that. But we'll talk fantasy, like I said, at the end of the episode, because I think that he's a pretty good fantasy expert. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the top 3 plays of this week. 2 of them are actually coming from the same game. So, Debbie, if you want to go ahead and start play number 1, because it's a long one. The Cowboys and Commanders had a big game. I mean, Dallas' season's kind of over, but Washington, big game for them. They're sputtering as of late, and so here's kind of what seems like a get-right game for them. Trailing by 3 with just a couple minutes to go. They kick off to the Devontae Turpin, who muffs the kick, really bad start to the play, but then hits one of the nastiest spin moves I've ever seen and takes this one pretty much 101 yards to the house, it seems like.
Yeah, that spin move was something out of Madden itself. I mean, it's like when you hit the spin button on Madden and you don't really go anywhere, but somehow it worked. And Devontae Turpin, he's one of the fastest ball carriers, I think, recorded this year in the NFL. So he's got some wheels, and he just needed that little spin to find a crease, and he was gone.
It was quite a nasty spin move. I was watching it live when that happened. Like, me and my brother jumped up and we're like, oh, because that's something. I mean, you see spin moves all the time, but that was an odd one. Like you said, he almost didn't move anywhere, but still got the job done. The next play came from the same game, and it was actually a couple drives later. Terry McLaurin, kind of the miraculous play once again for Commanders to go ahead and tie the game late with a chance, tie the game, send it to overtime. It looks like they were going to lose, and on their last breath, tied the game, just like the Chicago game. Terry McLaurin makes a great play, takes it all the way, 86 yards to the house. I mean, don't know what Dallas was doing. They almost didn't make an effort to tackle him on this play, but it looks like, holy smokes, the Commanders just did it again, and they're going to send this game to overtime and miraculously win the game. But, I mean, we'll get to it in a little bit, but they still did manage to find a way to lose, but incredible play nonetheless.
Yeah, I think I don't know what Dallas was doing. It seems like some type of coverage bust or some type of miscommunication for Terry, unless Terry just obviously he found that soft spot in the zone, and Jaden's got some type of Houdini in him, it seems like, between the Hail Mary from the Bears game, now this game. He almost had a chance at another Hail Mary at the end of this game because of all the craziness that happened in this, in the end of this game, one of the craziest games of the week. But it was unreal, great play, and Jaden is, I'll say this, that was great for fantasy at the end of the game. I was not mad about that.
No, I was actually losing my game, and when that happened, I was like, well, I think I'm good, because that was like an 86-yard touchdown pass. So
86 yard TDs will always help at the end.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then the final play of the week is in that snow game that we talked about. Maybe the play itself isn't the most electric play like the first two, but one, it's a snow game. Oh, well, big Jameis fan. I mean, I had to add him in here. Also in the awesome snow game. I mean, just look at that snow. But Jameis, in a big game against the Steelers, they're not supposed to win, takes it, hurdles over the defender, and barrels into the end zone for the touchdown to go up 2 possessions in the snow. I mean, just this entire game in itself, the whole second half, once it started snowing, was just peak football. And it doesn't matter who you're rooting for in this game. You can't be mad at a snow game like that. And it was awesome to watch.
Yeah, I was talking to my buddies and I was saying, usually I'll fall asleep during Thursday night football games because, work, 7 to 5, and then game started at 8, a little after 8, and halftime is like 10 o'clock. So I'm like, I'm kind of tired. I'm going to go to bed. But this was one of the most slowest scoring, most exciting games I've seen all year. And the snow had a big part to do with that. Mm-hmm. And just, as a Bucs fan, with Jameis, being there for the first 5 years of his career, even when Jameis they had those back-to-back turnovers in that game late in the fourth quarter, you just knew it wasn't over because Jameis has a way of just somehow pulling a rabbit out of his hat, and he did it again.
I was forced to start Jameis in my fantasy league this week because we start 2 quarterbacks, and Jameis is my third, and so in the snow versus the Steelers defense, I was not too thrilled, but that scrambling touchdown really brought me some joy because that was a nice 6 points right there from Jameis. So, all right, we're gonna jump into now recapping all of the Week 12 games more in depthly than just one play. So we're gonna actually start it off with that Thursday night game in the snow. The Browns won this one, 24-19. The first half and the second half look like completely different games. You can watch highlights from the first half, and it looks like a typical Thursday night football game, primetime game in normal conditions. I mean, there's a little bit of flutters of snow here or there, but then the second half, all of a sudden, it's just a downpour, and there's snow all over the field, and you can tell, I mean, it's affecting guys running their routes a little bit. They're not running as fast as they are, but it didn't really seem to affect Jameis too much. He was still slinging it, and the Browns got this one 24-19.
Yeah, Jameis, he's just fun. He's fun to watch. I mean, as a Buccaneer fan, with Jameis being there, it's almost like Jameis is a totally different person. Well, he had the LASIK eye surgery. Wish he would have done that before. Maybe he'd still be our quarterback. But yeah, so many videos of him squinting to see the scoreboard, and I'm like, dude, you can't see the scoreboard. How can you? No wonder you're throwing to the other team for 30 times a game, 30 times a season. And so, but James is so fun right now to watch. I mean, it's such a crazy universe. We're living like an alternate universe where Jameis Winston, former first-round overall pick of the Bucs, is now playing for the Browns, and Baker Mayfield, first overall pick for the Browns, is now playing for the Bucs. So this is I don't know. Maybe the Browns fans wish it was the other way around because Baker's playing pretty good right now, and Jameis though he's just so fun to watch. I mean, his post game interviews are I live for those. Those are something that you can't miss. If you got to go back and watch every Jameis post game, pre game, anytime he has a microphone in his face, you got to go listen to that guy because he's pure comedy.
He's awesome. And I think Jameis is one of the guys in the NFL that no matter what team you're a fan of, it's impossible to not root for him. Even if you're playing against him, you're not obviously going to root for him to do good and win, but you're interested to see what he's going to say and what he's going to do because Jameis is he can throw 5 interceptions and he's still going to sling it. He can have a terrible game and then his post-game conference is going to be he's something else. And Nick Chubb in this game, he still doesn't look exactly back to form. 20 carries for only 59 yards, but he did get 2 big touchdowns. The big touchdown at the end to salt the game away, give them the win. This was a big game for Nick Chubb. This was against the team that obviously injured him last season in week 2. He still isn't back to his form. I'm not sure if he's ever going to get back to the Nick Chubb we all expect, but I mean, 20 carries for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's got to be good for Nick Chubb to do that against the team that injured him. And then Russell Wilson, he still had a good game, especially when you think about the snow. 270 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He was throwing pretty well in the snow. He threw a long touchdown pass to, I believe, Calvin Austin. But yeah, definitely not an outcome that a lot of people were expecting going into this game.
Yeah, I think the pivotal point of the game where the Steelers, I think they just needed a first down to pretty much ice the game. And they brought in Justin Fields on like a third and 6 or something. And instead of just running the ball, he chucked it deep to Pickens. And that seemed like a questionable call at the time, because if you're trying to throw a deep ball on third down, I don't know why you're bringing in Justin Fields, who showed in the first few games he's not as good as that as Russell Wilson. I mean, that's all Russell Wilson's been doing, is hitting these deep shots for the Steelers. So questionable call by Arthur Smith or whoever was making that decision. But yeah, and I mean, yeah, sure, you trust your defense to make a stop, but Jameis is going to Jameis sometimes, and you got to live with it.
Jameis is going to Jameis. All right, we're going to jump to now from an AFC North rivalry to an AFC South rivalry, and the Titans and the Texans. The Titans actually won this one 32-27. CJ Stroud in his last couple of weeks has really struggled. I know they've been winning games. They beat Dallas last week, but it's not the Texans, and it's not the CJ Stroud that we were expecting kind of for this entire season. I mean, they're 7-5. They're running away with their division, yes, but going into the season, CJ Stroud, people expected to have a sophomore just leap. He was already one of the greatest rookie QBs we've seen in a long time, and then he brings in Stephon Diggs. Nico Collins was already phenomenal last season. Tank Dell is now healthy. They bring in Joe Mixon. They're supposed to be primed to just be, Super Bowl contenders, and they've kind of struggled. I know they've got their wins, but losing this one to the Titans and being in a lot of games they really shouldn't be in. I know Stephon Diggs is out for the season, but Will Levis in this game, playing a pretty good Texans defense, had a good game. He went 18 for 26, 278 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did throw a really, really bad pick six that gave Houston the lead late, but towards the end of this game, it really looked like both teams wanted to lose. I mean, the Titans would get the ball and they'd go 3-and-out, or they'd fumble, and then the Texans would get it back and they'd throw a pick, and then to kind of almost salt the game away, CJ Stroud kind of pulled a Dan Orlovsky type play and almost ran out the back of the end zone. He was tackled around the same time, so that might have saved him a little bit, but it definitely looked like he was running out of the back of the end zone for a safety. But nonetheless, the Texans are definitely struggling, and CJ Stroud is not playing how we thought he would this season.
Yeah, Stroud definitely had a couple head-scratching plays, almost like the Will Levis was kind of rubbing off on him in that game, trying to one-up him for who's going to make the most boneheaded play of the day. Because, yeah, you had Levis throw that really bad pick six. You thought the Texans would probably take it from there, and then Stroud had 2 picks himself, and plus the bad safety. So yeah, I don't know. They're the wheels are spinning a little bit there in Houston, but I mean, at the end of the day, they got control of that division. I mean, the Titans are a division opponent, so always going to play the division opponents tighter than they should. And so yeah, it's I think they'll be fine. I mean, yeah, they lost Diggs, Nico's, but this is his second week back, probably his first full week that he's played a majority of the snaps. I know last week against Dallas, he didn't play a majority of the snaps coming back for the first week off the hamstring. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Texans defense is playing really good, and I think they'll obviously still be a playoff team because the Colts aren't coming to take that division. So it's just about trying to get hot at the right time, and they still got a couple games here to get things back on track and start clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, anything could happen once January rolls around. So if they just start clicking and things seem to mesh when January comes around, the playoffs, your record doesn't matter once you make it to playoffs. It just matters what happens in those next 4 games. So if they can get hot at the right time, they have the talent to definitely go ahead and contend for a Super Bowl. So, all right. Next up, we have the game that we talked a little bit about also when we hit the plays of the week. We got the Cowboys and the Commanders game. This was one of the more stranger games that I've seen in a while. The Cowboys, whose season seems to be over, they've been everything's gone wrong for them. Cooper Rush is in at quarterback the rest of the season because Dak is injured. Their stadium is falling apart. The sun is blinding their players, but they go ahead and they win this one 34-26 against the Commanders team that at once was 7-2, and people were saying, this team is shocking the world, and they're going to go ahead and they're going to potentially win this division, and they could try to make a run in the playoffs. But now the Commanders have lost 3 straight, one to Pittsburgh, which is understandable, another to Philly, but now losing to Dallas. They're sputtering. Jaden Daniels is, I think he's still a little bit banged up from his rib injury a couple weeks ago. He's not running as much as he was. He threw 2 interceptions in this game. Granted, one of them was on the Hail Mary at the end. But McLaurin had another good game. 5 receptions for 102 and a touchdown. And yes, I know 86 of them came on one play. But really, the weird storyline of this game was special teams. The Cowboys, obviously, we saw Turpin's crazy kick return touchdown. We saw the Terry McLaurin touchdown, and then at the end they missed their extra point to go ahead and tie the game. So that's another special teams play. And then on the onside kick, on the ensuing onside kick, the Cowboys take that all the way to the house. So that right there is 3 massive special teams plays that just you don't typically see more than one in a game, and we saw 3 of them and extra point to pretty much lose the game. So weird special teams play, but you need all 3 phases to win a game. You need offense, defense, and special teams, and the Commanders didn't have that today or Sunday.
Yeah, I think I guess my question right now is do the Commanders have enough weapons this year to make a run in the playoffs, And because it just seems like, they got Brian Robinson, they got Austin Eckler, both probably aren't playing this week because Brian Robinson hurt his ankle, came back, but then left again in the second half. Looked like a similar injury to what happened to Joe Mixon when he missed a couple games early in the season. Got his ankle rolled up on a questionable maybe hip drop tackle. So we'll let the NFL review that. And then, Austin Eckler got a scary concussion at the end of the game. And so and that's the second one this year. So he's definitely not playing this week. So they're down to their 3rd string, Jeremy McNichols. If you want to quick fantasy input, if you need a spot start, Jeremy McNichols might he'll get the work for sure. They got no one. I mean, they'll have another guy probably called up from the practice squad, but he's the 3rd string. So, and then obviously on the outside, you have Scary Terry, you got Noah Brown, Zacchaeus, one of their other receivers. I mean, Zach Ertz is just an old man; just keeps going. So I just question. Yeah, you said that like you said, they've lost 3 in a row. Some good teams, but this one should have been a win. You got to win on the home field against your division rival with a backup quarterback and a team that's begging you to beat them down. So it's I love Jaden Daniels. I think he's the guy, right? He's got it, but I think in order for them in the future and maybe even to finish this year to make a run in the playoffs or even get to the playoffs, I think he's for sure going to need more weapons in the offseason. So.
Yeah, their defense going into the season wasn't supposed to be anything special. One of the worst defenses, and they've kind of impressed this year. They've definitely played above their expectation, and so that's been a massive help for them. So if they can get a couple more pieces on that defense, but then like you said, bolster that offense, because right now it's kind of McLaurin. They got some running backs, but I mean Eckler's pretty old. Ertz is really old. So if they can get McLaurin, some other receivers around him, definitely bolster that offense. Like you said, Jaden Daniels just has that it factor that he can go ahead and win you some games. So yeah,
I do think though that Jaden is playing. He's still not fully healthy, like you said. I mean, he actually ran for a touchdown for once and forever. It seems like this week since before the Panthers game when he got a little banged up, and. The bottom line is, I mean, it's like if you take Lamar Jackson and take away his rushing ability, he's not as dynamic. So if Jaden's just going to be sitting in the pocket, he's good. Like he can do some things, but what makes him elite is his rushing ability and his ability to escape out of the pocket and create from that. So if they're going to make a deep run, he's got to play almost hero ball. So, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, and in terms of fantasy, they have the Week 14 bye, so. For the fantasy playoffs, hopefully that bye can help him get a little bit rested up before everybody's fantasy playoffs. That's at least what I'm hoping for.
Yeah,
So.
as long as you don't need him to sneak into the playoffs week 14, you should be good.
All right, this next game, I'm actually going to let you take the lead on this one. Your Bucks went to New York and beat the Giants 30-7. Not really much of a contest, but what are your thoughts on this one? I'll let you take the lead.
Yeah, Todd Bowles. He's usually in his head coaching career not the greatest head coach. Obviously started in New York back in the day, and then he's been doing Tampa the last 3 years. But he's 1-5 coming off the bye. So in Tampa circles, we were very skeptical because this seemed like an easy win. And usually when it seems like an easy win against a formidable foe that you should dominate, it seems like Todd kind of plays with his food a little bit and lets him hang around. They usually win, but not in dominating fashion. But this was completely from the start dominating fashion from the offense and defense. Yeah, Baker's never been the problem this year for the Bucks. It's been the defense, and so that's what all Bucks fans wanted to see. Was we knew that Liam Cohen was going to call a good game, get their guys. Mike Evans was back for the first week. We knew we weren't going to need him a ton, but he showed some things. And yeah, the running backs did their thing. There were 4 rushing touchdowns from 4 different players, which is crazy. The 3 running backs and Baker himself. So we'll see if the Bucks
all 3 of them scored a touchdown. Did they really?
Yeah, Sean Tucker, Rashad White, and Bucky Irving all scored a touchdown. And then Baker rushed one in from about 10 yards out and did the Tommy DeVito celebration. So, which some of the people in the media were upset about, but he said it was a tribute to Tommy because he apparently met him in Vegas one year, and he said he has a lot of swag. So there's no hard feelings for that. But yeah, Todd Bowles and the Bucks, almost identical to last year. Started 3-1, then lost, went on a losing streak. Last year they were 4-7. This year they're 4-6, and then won 5 of their last 6 or 6 of their last 7 to get in the playoffs. So we'll see if they do it again this week. It's not fun when that happens because you start so well, and then you hit a tough little stretch. So then you pretty much have to be perfect down the stretch. So we'll see if they can continue that. And they do have according to Pro Football Focus, they do have the easiest remaining schedule as far as based off win percentages. So, and they have had the toughest to date. So it'll get easier in the back half here, but yeah, we'll see if their defense can hold up.
Yeah, and I know as a Bucks fan, you got to be a little optimistic because after that Monday Night Football game against the Ravens, it looked like your season maybe not over. Maybe that's a little too much of an exaggeration, but losing your top 2 wide receivers, Godwin for the season, and then Evans for 3 or 4 weeks, and then Atlanta at the time was rolling. Well, Atlanta's been absolutely sputtering these last couple of weeks, and now Evans is back, and now like you said, you have the easiest remaining schedule. So you're only, I believe, a game or 2 behind Atlanta. I know they have both of the wins against you, so they have the tiebreaker. But with Atlanta sputtering and you guys seeming to be back on track, getting your receiver back, it could easily flip and they could take that division.
Yeah, the Falcons did a couple favors losing to the Saints and then the Broncos right before the bye. So if they win one of those 2 games, I'd probably say there's no shot. But they actually have a decently tough schedule remaining. They got the Chargers, who are good, and they also have the Vikings and Commanders. So the Bucks have to finish a full game in front of them since Atlanta holds the tiebreaker. So if the Bucks, yeah, they could pretty much stub their toe once and still maybe win the division. But if the Commanders, like we were just talking about, keep stumbling, they could potentially take their wild card spot. So it's definitely not over, but you have to have some help, and you have to pretty much win every game, but maybe once you can afford to stumble once. So should be interesting down the stretch. It's always interesting as a Bucks fan.
Yeah, they dominated that division the last couple of seasons, and now they're in a tight battle with Atlanta. So it's gonna be interesting the next month to see how it pans out. So, all right, the next game, the Chiefs, the 2-time back-to-back Super Bowl champs, go to Carolina and beat the Panthers. Not surprisingly, but the score was surprising. 30-27, the Chiefs win, and they won this one off of a field goal as time expired. I was very pleased watching this game. Like they lost obviously, but I was not disappointed by any means. Like, that was like one of the only losses that I could watch and be like, wow, like, I'm not upset by any means. Bryce Young threw for 263 yards in this game and a touchdown, but those stats wouldn't wow anybody. But if you watch the game, he looked different behind the offensive line and in the pocket. He was standing in there. He was making checks at the line, and he was making throws that we haven't seen him make in his entire career so far. Definitely not last season, and definitely not this season so far. But really, ever since his benching, he's looked a little bit better. He hasn't had wowing stats, but he's doing what he's been asked to do, and he's not making mistakes, and he's not looking scared behind the pocket. He's standing in there, he's taking hits, and he's forcing the ball downfield, and it's working. David Moore, like 80-year-old David Moore, who used to play for Seattle, had 81 yards in this game, and then 75-year-old Adam Thielen had another 57. Leggett had a good game with 56 yards. I mean, the team they seem to be rolling right now. I know that you lost this game, but you're not really expected to go in and beat Kansas City. So losing by 3 to that team is very good. And playing a defense like Kansas City and having as good of a game as Bryce Young did is very promising. Mahomes, he did kind of one of his better games of this season, threw for 269 yards with 3 touchdowns. The Panthers defense is just Swiss cheese. I mean, the Chiefs went down almost every single drive and at least got a field goal. I think the Panthers stopped them twice from any points, which if they want to go ahead and win games, I mean, they got to fix that defense, especially because, I mean, the offense can do as well as they did today. They only punted the ball 1 time, but if you can't stop the other team, you can't stop the other team. But I was very pleased watching this game, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's just me being the biased Panthers fan. I don't know if that's the consensus, so I'm interested to see what you think about the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Panthers fan, you should be happy. I mean, obviously they lost, but it was the way they lost, right? It wasn't they were dominated. It wasn't like the Bucs-Giants game where it was 30-0 at one point. It was a close game throughout, and the Fighting Dave Canaleses are, they believe in him, and they're not giving up on him, which says a lot about the coach. And obviously from him being in Tampa the last year, the guys, similar, were down, but they didn't, they got back off the mat and kept fighting through the whole season and ended up, going to the playoffs and winning a playoff game with him. And he, it just takes a while sometimes to, understand that system he's trying to bring in for Carolina. I think the benching did help Bryce Young, which is, and then unfortunately, the Andy Dalton car accident and forced to come back in. But yeah, he's looked more of like a game manager instead of just, incompetent like he was looking beforehand. So showing that, maybe his career is not dead yet. So I think it's very much alive for them. And as a Chiefs fan, if I'm watching this game, I'm probably a little concerned that I have to take it to a last second field goal to beat Carolina. Obviously, it's not the toughest of foes, and you're back-to-back Super Bowl champions, especially you're supposed to rely on your defense. I would have thought that's a home run. Should have been the score of the Bucs game, probably 30-7, but it's 30-27, and the Panthers probably had them scared for a second, and then Mahomes takes that last drive and does one of his lame scrambles where he just pretends like he's going out of bounds and then just keeps scooting up the sideline. So annoying, but the Chiefs are just not as good as their record shows, if we're being honest. They're not this dominant team like the Lions, who are, dominating teams on offense and defense. This team is just trying to win you on defense, rely on a couple calls that will go your way and, hope to, win it on a close end of the game field goal or drive or defensive stop. I mean, they're not dominating a ton of teams. So, I mean, they took the Bucs took them to overtime in Arrowhead on Monday night, and they should have lost the next week to the Broncos, somehow, get lucky and block a field goal. It's just things like that it almost feels like it's the Vikings year back with Kirk Cousins when they went like 13-4 or something, and were like 10-0 in 1-score games, and just seemed like every ball was bouncing their way. Obviously their defense was better.
That team went ahead and lost to the Giants in the first round. So
yeah, exactly. So, but the way they're going now, they're not even going to have to play in the first round if they keep that first round bye. So, Yeah, and then once the playoffs happen, Andy Reid, they've all been there before, so they're obviously dangerous team once it comes to playoff time. But I do definitely think that their record is not as they're not as good as what their record shows. But
Absolutely. Just watching the games themselves, they look like not the number one, probably not even the number 2 or 3 team. They're just getting some lucky balances at the end, and like you said, maybe some favorable calls or some things like that tend to go their way. So we'll see how the rest of the season pans out, and if they'll three-peat, because like you said, they seem to just click once the playoffs come around. So. All right, this next game we probably don't need to spend that much time on. There's not too much to talk about. The Dolphins go ahead and beat the Patriots 34-15. A couple weeks ago, the Dolphins are the team that I had just written off. Tua was obviously injured, but the record I believe was like 2-6 or 1-6. They were struggling, and no, it wouldn't. Yeah, I don't know what it was, but they were really, really struggling. And, I know Tua was going to eventually come back and they were going to look like a new team, but I was like, I'm just writing them off. The AFC is tough. They're not going to win the division from the Bills. And to squeak in as a wild card team with that many losses already, you'd have to play like perfect the rest of the season. And my dad brought it up last week on the podcast that, a team to keep in mind is Miami, and a team that he thinks could definitely squeak in. So I don't know. I still think it's a little bit of a long shot, but they are 5-6 and they do look like a completely different team. So maybe they do go on a run here late. Maybe they do squeak into the playoffs, because they do look like the Dolphins we expected to see all season with Tua at quarterback, going handily winning this game. Drake May didn't really look amazing. He looked like a rookie QB once again in this game, but this season Drake May has looked really good. I've been impressed. I wasn't high on him very much at all coming out, but he's impressed me this season. But this game looked a little bit more like that typical rookie quarterback. But Miami's rolling, and that's really all I gotta say.
yeah, Miami with Tua now, since he's been back, he's got 11 touchdowns to 1 pick. So it's he's balling. They were up 31-0 at one point in this game. It was over by the third quarter, which is what you expect, with the Dolphins with that much firepower. Achane looks good in the run game. He's great for fantasy, let me tell you that. And Tyreek Hill, I think he's dealing with something with his wrist still. He's still not really doing a whole lot. Definitely not the Tyreek of last year. And Jalen Waddle gets in the end zone for like the first time in forever. And are we sure that Jonnu Smith and Tyreek aren't just like switching jerseys every week, and that Jonnu's Tyreek and Tyreek's Jonnu? Because Jonnu Smith is playing unbelievable football for a guy who's just been a journeyman throughout his career at tight end, and he looks lightning fast. So I'm not convinced. I might have to do a little deeper of dive into that. But no, the Dolphins did what they needed to. Drake May, yeah, it was good that he sat the first few games, let Jacoby Brissett kind of take a beating and then learn how it is to be an NFL pro. And I think he's got a bright future. I don't know if that coaching staff is the future necessarily at head coach, but I think they have so many wide receivers who are okay. They just don't have a really great one. And I think they need to invest in their offensive line to help Drake May out. He's a dual threat. He reminds me a little bit of Justin Herbert. There was the game went the way everyone probably thought it was going to, and it was just a beatdown. So the Dolphins maybe have a little run in them. It's kind of open at the last wild card spot in the AFC is a little bit open right now.
Yeah, they're definitely a team to keep your eye on, because they're a team that was expected to make the playoffs kind of this season before Tua was injured, and now they look like that old team. So another kind of type of beatdown was the Lions headed to Indianapolis. They beat the Colts 24-6. Anthony Richardson last week had one of his best games, if not his best game of his career, going 20 for 30, which never happens for Anthony Richardson, but he looked a little bit more like Anthony Richardson in this game. throwing for 11 for 28, so 17 incomplete passes, back to the normal Richardson, under 50% passing. But I mean, that's also going to happen when you play Detroit, like we talked about a little bit ago. They'll beat you on offense, they'll beat you on defense. They're the most complete team in the league. It looks like they're unstoppable right now. Goff threw for 269 yards, didn't have to throw a touchdown, so he didn't. Gibbs ran it in for 2 touchdowns. Montgomery ran it in for another one. I mean, this team just has weapons all over the field. They got the two-headed monster at running back. They got Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams is coming to his own this year. That defense is phenomenal, even without Aiden Hutchinson this year. I mean, that team is just unreal. Every game seems to be a beatdown, and in the last 3 weeks, they haven't allowed a single point in the second half of the game. So that speaks to some phenomenal coaching at halftime, some adjustments made on the defensive end. But the Lions are running away with the NFC, it seems like. As right now, it looks like almost a collision course between them and Philly if they keep playing the way they do. But yeah, the Lions they're another beast this year. And we get to finally watch a good Lions team on Thanksgiving, but they play Chicago, so it's probably going to be another beatdown.
Yeah, the Colts really didn't stand a chance. They bottled up Jonathan Taylor, with that Lions great run defense, and just trying to force it. You know, they were going to force Anthony Richardson to try to beat them on his own, and he's just not that guy right now. So, yeah, the Lions are probably the best team in the NFL, complete team. You know, their only loss was to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is weird to say, but same with the Eagles have 2 losses, but after the Eagles lost to the Bucs and after the Lions lost to the Bucs, they're a combined 16-0. So, you know, watch out for the New York Giants. They might go on a little run here now that we beat them. So, no, it's the Lions are good. They're yeah, even without Aiden Hutchinson, defense is still stout, and Anzalone being hurt last week with the forearm injury. So, yeah, the Colts, they still have a shot to also sneak in, maybe with them and the Dolphins, to try to push for that last wild card spot if they can, yeah, figure it out. But yeah, the Lions are just on another level. It's frustrating if you have Jared Goff in fantasy football, because 1 week he'll throw for 4 touchdowns when he doesn't need to, and then the next week they also don't need him to, and then he'll throw 0 touchdowns and they'll just run everything in. So it's just it's a great offense to have pieces in, you know, sometimes not Jared Goff because he doesn't rush the ball obviously a ton. So, but as far as just football teams, they're a really good one, and it's going to be tough to beat them in the playoffs, especially if they have home field advantage, because that's a tough place to play.
That place is loud. I went to a game in Detroit last year and left with a headache, so I also watched the Panthers get beat down, so they were screaming every 3 minutes for a touchdown. But yeah, Lions are definitely a good team. But we're going to keep it in the NFC North with the Vikings and the Bears. The Bears are a team that they've had heartbreaking loss after heartbreaking loss, it seems, this year. Obviously, the Hail Mary, the blocked field goal last week, and now they recovered an onside kick in this game. They go down, they tied the game, and they send it to overtime. It looked like the game was just over. They were getting smoked, it seemed, and nothing was coming for them on offense. And all of a sudden, fourth quarter, things just kind of clicked, and they got the onside kick. They scored a couple touchdowns. They put up 17 in that fourth quarter, and then overtime came. They got the ball first. Oh my goodness, it looks like they could go ahead and score a touchdown and win this game, and they struggle that possession on offense. Vikings get the ball and go down and kick a game-winning field goal. Caleb Williams had a little bit of a better game, stat-wise, I would say. 340 passing yards with 2 touchdowns, but he had to throw the ball 47 times in this game, through 15 incompletions, went 32 for 47. But DJ Moore had kind of a resurgence of what we haven't seen from DJ Moore most of this season, with 106 yards and a touchdown. Keenan Allen had a good game as well, and that's kind of what we expected to see, or at least what we hoped to see from the Bears this season. We knew Caleb Williams was a rookie, but he had such high expectations with such good weapons. People were hoping he would just click with those weapons, and we'd see an incredible offense between DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and all the rest of the offense. But we haven't seen that majority of the season. And Minnesota, on the other side of it, they now moved to 9-2, which is, I know I say this every single week, but that just surprises me every single week. I know they started 5-0, but they're just not a 9-2 football team to me. They're winning these games, and I guess that's what matters. But Sam Darnold leading a team to a 9-2 record is just not something I ever thought I would see. Jordan Addison is playing phenomenal football the last couple of weeks. Jefferson isn't even doing Justin Jefferson type things, but they're still winning these games. So if they can get both of those guys to click, Aaron Jones is dominating. I mean, they're a strange team to me, and their defense at the beginning of the season was rolling. It's kind of fell off a little bit this second half, but the Vikings are 9-2, and you can't ignore that. And so they're only a game behind Detroit right now. So that game against Detroit later this season could come down to be massive, could be for the division. But they're a team to look at in the NFC as well and say, well, why can't they contend? Why can't they potentially go to an NFC championship or even a Super Bowl?
Yeah, it was a crazy game. This was a very crazy game. Caleb's definitely playing better the last 2 weeks since they fired Shane Waldron, their offensive coordinator. Still, coming up just a little short. I'm sure he's frustrated. But, these are the things you have to go through sometimes as rookies. And, the whole, they got Caleb Williams. They had all these receivers. No way, they might be Super Bowl bound at the beginning of the year, or for sure playoffs. But just like in fantasy football, even if you have all these guys on your team that look great on paper, you still got to play the games. And things have not quite clicked all around, especially on offense. Those first handful of weeks, and they're looking a little bit better as of late. Yeah, like you said, DJ Moore was great in this game. I had to start him in fantasy due to a couple bye weeks, and was pleasantly surprised with the 23-point fantasy point effort. So, caught the touchdown. Still getting out-targeted by the likes of, Keenan Allen had 15 targets. Rome Odunze had 10. Cole Kmet had 10. And DJ only had 7, but he did catch all 7 receptions. And so, it was a good game for them. But, the Vikings feel, it's somehow that they're rebuild. It's the crazy situation because they're somehow rebuilding and they're 9-2, and the Lions are 10-1, and it's their best team maybe in franchise history, people claim. And it's just like two different ends of the spectrum. Oh, we're rebuilding, but we're 9-2. Oh, this is the greatest team we've ever had, and we're 10-1. So it's just kind of funny thinking about that. But the Vikings definitely feel, they're good. I just also sometimes you do see the shortcomings of Sam Darnold, and that he is limited in some aspects. And like when they played the Jaguars a few weeks and didn't even throw for a touchdown, he had 3 picks, still won the game because their defense is pretty solid, which I think is why they've won a lot of games really, is they can be aggressive on offense and defense. They're also aggressive. So, Jordan Addison really came to play that game, and TJ Hawkinson is stepped up since coming back. This was, I think, his fourth week back, and played his most snaps of the year. And they found a way to almost blowing it in regulation, found a way to pull it out back in overtime. So,
Debbie apparently has breaking news. Debbie's yelling at me behind the thing. Debbie's gonna pull it up. Oh. Daniel Jones is, I guess, signing with Minnesota, which...
Well. Please tell me the Giants play the Vikings later this year, please. Please.
That doesn't make the most sense to me because, I would imagine they're still obviously going to start Darnold over him, but then they have J.J. McCarthy behind him. Obviously, he's injured this season, but...
maybe it might just be an insurance policy on Sam if something goes down that... Danny Jones, because Danny Jones, like we saw with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and some of these other quarterbacks, they're not as bad as they may seem, with their original teams. And sometimes they got to see, got to go to the other side of the grass, and sometimes it is greener on the other side. So, it just seems like a kind of an insurance policy for Sam Darnold if he goes down. And I mean, I also know that J.J. McCarthy's knee injury was a little more involved than I think they initially thought. They had to do a second surgery on it. So don't know what his timeline is because Sam Darnold is on just a 1-year deal. So, maybe he's played his way into some type of bridge contract like Geno got or Baker got after, a prove-it deal initially. And, maybe Sam Darnold signs somewhere else in the offseason as a starter, and maybe they need Danny Dimes to hold down the fort until JJ can come back. So we will see. But, good for Danny Dimes. Not that he needs the money. The dude's making millions of dollars to be released by the Giants. So he's made his money. I mean, at the end of the day, he's probably still closer to a backup than a full-blown starter. But we'll see. Time will tell. And, no one thought that about Sam Darnold. And here he is, maybe playing his way to a contract where he can be a starter for a couple of years here. So,
yeah, definitely a higher end backup if that is the case. So, all right, the next game we got the Broncos going to Vegas, and Broncos are just continuing to roll. They win this one 29-19. Raiders aren't a good team, I'm fully aware, but the Broncos now they moved to 7-5, and Bo Nix is continuing to ball. He threw for 273 yards and 2 touchdowns. I talked about it last week, but I think it's fair to say that the rookie of the year is going to be Jaden Daniels. I think he's still played well enough all season to win that award, but it would be criminal to not mention Bo Nix in that conversation because the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months maybe, Bo Nix has really impressed and is just seemingly getting better every single week. And the Broncos, a team that nobody expected to win more than a couple games this season, are sitting at 7-5 and are at a position to go ahead and maybe take a wild card spot and make the playoffs. And Bo Nix is making things work with the receiving core of Cortland Sutton, Vele, not even sure how to really say his name. And then, his running backs, Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime. He doesn't have the greatest core around him, but they're going ahead and they're winning these games. Yes, they have a phenomenal defense, but Bo Nix is playing great football, and the Broncos are playing good. And Vegas, on the other hand, they continue to suck, and they're sitting there. They have a pretty clear path to a top 3 pick, probably getting a new QB and starting fresh next season.
Yeah, the Raiders are a train wreck. They literally aren't good, it seems, at any core position as far as offensively, besides tight end, with Brock Bowers being the one bright spot. But yeah, they need a top pick, and they need to just reset with a quarterback. And because Minshew's not the answer, Aiden O'Connell's not the answer. Minshew just broke his collarbone, so he's done for the year. Aiden O'Connell might come back for this game this week, coming off the IR, but regardless, it doesn't matter. They're probably maybe a 3-win football team at best. Maybe they'll win one more game the rest of the year. So, yeah, there's no doubt that they should get a top 3 pick. And the Broncos, on the other hand, they're sneaky. I know back in week 3 when the Bucs played them after Bo Nix looked like he couldn't pass the ball past the line of scrimmage the first 2 weeks, all of a sudden the Bucs defense, thanks to Todd Bowles, made him look like Peyton Manning. And I hate to say it, but Sean Payton's a good coach. I hate that guy just because of all his time in New Orleans and beating on the Bucs and taking the ball from Jameis Winston and making the Bucs look stupid. So he owns the NFC South, as the Broncos have swept the NFC South this year
and dominated every single game.
Yeah, not even close. They dominated the Falcons. They dominated the Bucs. Those are the 2 best teams in the division. Everyone else was just obviously going to be dominated, unfortunately. And so, yeah, Bo Nix is obviously playing really good football right now. You could maybe start to argue because Jaden obviously had the unreal start and then kind of slowed down, while Nix had the slow start and now has come on strong. You might be able to argue he's the best QB in the draft class right now. Obviously Jaden Daniels probably just will still get the rookie of the year. But, if Bo Nix keeps this up and, they make a little bit of a playoff run, and I think for sure they should be a playoff team, unless they somehow just collapse or Bo Nix goes down. Yeah, they have a really good offensive line. Their offensive line's playing great for Bo, and holding down the fort and letting Bo create. And he's got a little bit of Justin Herbert in him too, where he's a little more athletic than you would think, and can rush the ball. I think he's averaging about 25 rushing yards per game, and then he's making good decisions. He's got ton of experience as a starter in college. So
Yeah.
these guys who have this experience, the Bo Nixes, the Brock Purdy's, they might not have the sexiest tape out there, but they're good football players and they know how to manage games, and that's what Sean Payton's asking Bo Nix to do, and it's really working for them right now.
Yeah, that's all Drew Brees had to do his whole career, and look how good that worked out for him. So Bo Nix and the Broncos are rolling, and like you said, he doesn't have to be that sexy superstar that wins you the games, but he's managing the games and doing what he has to do and relying on that defense as well. They have one of the best defenses in the league, so rely on that. The Cardinals went to Seattle, went to one of the harder places to play in the league in a game that was for the lead in the NFC West, and unfortunately lost this one 16-6. I know I was really pulling for the Cardinals in this one. I think that they're just a fun team to root for and watch this year, but they didn't really look like much of anything this game. The offense couldn't really get going. They didn't score a touchdown in this game. They kicked 2 field goals. But on the other side of it, the Seahawks didn't do much either. 16-6, kind of a little bit of a boring game. The bright spot for the Cardinals was Trey McBride bringing in 12 catches for 133 yards. He still has not had a receiving touchdown this season, but him being one of the better tight ends in the NFL was a little bit of a surprising stat to me. But the Cardinals are still very much in the hunt for winning that division. That division is so up in the air. You got the Cardinals at 6-5 and the Seahawks at 6-5. And then both the Rams and the 49ers, I believe, at 5-6, which is crazy. But this division is so up in the air. It's such a coin flip still. Kyler Murray threw for 288 yards, but didn't throw a touchdown or run one in, which is kind of uncharacteristic of him. But on the other side of it, Geno Smith didn't have, he had an average game with 254 yards and a touchdown and a pick. Smith and Jigba for receiving had 77 yards and a touchdown. He's kind of been that breakout second-year receiver for them, and he's been a very big bright spot for the Seahawks this year, definitely taking that number 2 role. He's honestly looked a little bit better than DK Metcalf most of this season, but Seahawks win this one 16-6. Not too much to talk about stat-wise, but it's going to be really interesting the rest of the season to see how this division plays out. I believe these two teams play one more time this year because that could be a very big game, could come down to the division because it's not looking like the 49ers have a massive shot with their remaining schedule and their injuries and their current record. So, 6 months ago, that would have been insane to say, but it's looking like a race between maybe these two teams.
Yeah, this was definitely a defensive slugfest, and I think it was a little bit of rain going on in this game too. So, the NFC West is just a big log jam right now. One game separates, I think, first place from last place. So, it's going to come down to how these teams play in division, and all these games matter. Like you said, I do think the Niners have a tough remaining schedule. I think they got to play Buffalo this week. I still think they got to play Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. And one of these Cardinals, Seahawks, Rams, unless the 49ers just snap out of it and, return to the form of last year's team. But to be quite honest, I don't think this is last year's team. I think it's Deebo Samuel's not the same guy. Brandon Ayuk's out for the year. George Kittle's playing unreal football especially for fantasy. If you have him, he's been a godsend. And Brock Purdy is maybe a little more valuable than we thought. For the Niners, but we can talk about that in a little bit. But the NFC West it's just a big logjam. Jackson Smith and Jigba is playing really good football right now, which is nice to see after last year's kind of just disappointment, with the offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, who is also now out of a job. So maybe it wasn't his fault, his first year either. But Geno Smith seems to be looking his way whenever they need a big third down conversion or fourth down conversion. And he's looking his way more in the red zone as well, especially when DK was out. So, but now DK's back, which will should only help JSN, not get double teamed or anything like crazy like that. So should be an exciting finish down the stretch here in the NFC West.
Absolutely. And let's keep it in the NFC West. Let's talk about the Niners, who we were just talking about. They lose to Green Bay in a pretty pivotal game for their season, 38-10. Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa did not play in this game. And like you were talking about, maybe Purdy is a little more valuable than what a lot of people thought. I will be the first one to tell you I did not think Purdy was anything. I think I haven't been quiet about it either, that he's a game manager, that any QB in that system is going to dominate, is going to look good. But now, I mean, they didn't have Purdy and lose 38-10. I mean, I know they don't have a lot of help right now. They have a lot of their superstars injured, but 38-10, I would have to imagine Purdy would have a closer game than that. And so maybe Purdy is more valuable, but the 49ers, their season is sputtering out quickly. They dropped to 5-6. They're 0-3 against the division, and they got Buffalo this week, and then they still have Detroit later this season. So that's two very tough games. Very surprising. I mean, me and my dad talked about last week the Super Bowl hangover. It just seems to be a thing that shouldn't make sense, but it does. A team that was just in the Super Bowl and lost, they should have more motivation. They should have more experience. They should be able to easily get back, not just to the playoffs, but to the Super Bowl potentially. But we see it time and time again where that team not only struggles to make the Super Bowl, but struggles to make the playoffs. We saw in 2015, the year, or like when the Panthers went to the Super Bowl the next year, they really struggled. We saw Philly. They made the playoffs last season, but really sputtered out towards the end. I mean, I don't know what it is about losing the Super Bowl, but you struggle the next season, and that's what we're seeing with the 49ers this year. But the Packers, on the other hand, they're very quietly continuing to win games, and they improve their record to, I believe, 8-3. So that division, the NFC North, is sitting at, I believe, 9-2, 10-1, and now 8-3. So really tight top of that division in the NFC North. That's definitely the best division in football right now. But the 49ers, they got to figure things out like this week, or things could be over very soon for the 49ers.
Yeah. The Niners, that's why I think as far as like Super Bowl hangover stuff, the Niners, coming off of that tough loss to the Chiefs in overtime. That's why it's so important, and why you never know when you're going to get another chance to get to the Super Bowl. Once you get there, you just, that's why you got to take it, because it's so many things have to really break your way, to get back year after year. And that's why it's really impressive that the Chiefs, as much as I don't like the Chiefs, it's really impressive that they're able, year in, year out to make deep runs in the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl and win, or go to the Super Bowl and lose to the Bucs back in 2020. You're welcome, everyone else, or else the Chiefs would have like 4 or 5 wins in a row. So luckily the Bucs were able to break that up, because then the year before they beat the Niners. So the Niners, like I said, I don't think they're the same team they were last year. You lose personnel, you get injuries, those things. It's tough to not to have all those things happen back-to-back years, right? Even with the Chiefs, like they've doing it different way. They used to do it high flying with Tyreek Hill and Kelsey back in the a couple of years ago, and now they're handing the ball off to Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt and going behind that offensive line and playing way more defense than they did with those first Super Bowl teams. So it's you have to adapt to whatever your team's good at, and the Niners right now just so injury deprived, and it's looking like maybe their luck's going to run out, and because there's going to be quite the paycheck heading to Mr. Purdy's way, pretty sure at the end of this year, and this is when he's due up for an extension. So they're going to have to break up the band, and they're going to have to pick and choose who they want. That will be interesting to see in the future. But as far as the Packers, the NFC North, it's so tough. There's those guys. I mean, there's no room for error. So it's going to come down to how they play in the division ultimately. And I mean, to get 3 teams in the postseason would be crazy. I mean, potentially just the way things shake up, maybe they only get 2, but I think for sure they'll get 2. It'll be crazy if they can get 3. So Really tough division, but ultimately they're going to have to start playing each other a little more too, which will, make them not be able to keep racking up wins each week. Sometimes they're going to have to lose. So when they're playing each other, so that will, settle itself all out. But yeah, it's tough sledding right now in the NFC North.
Mm-hmm. Funny enough that you mentioned the Bucks beating the Chiefs in that Super Bowl and saying thank you, because looking back at it, most people were probably rooting for the Chiefs because that was only like the second year of Mahomes' kind of stardom and Super Bowl appearances, and people were like, oh yeah, like I like this young team, like screw Tom Brady, we don't want to see him win again. And so looking back at it now, everyone's like, oh, thank the Lord that happened, but I didn't really ever think about that. So yeah. Sunday night football game now. The Eagles going to the Rams, and they just put it to them, 37-20. Saquon Barkley continues to be one of, if not the best addition in the offseason for any team. Running for 26 carries, 255 yards, and 2 touchdowns in this game. He could have probably had another touchdown, but Kenneth Gainwell ran one in himself. Saquon is just taking this offense from, I don't know if I'd call it good or elite. We'll say elite to like mega elite or good to elite, because Saquon has just transformed this offense. Obviously, we know that Jalen Hurts, he can throw the ball. He's got plenty of weapon, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and he can run it himself. But now you got to definitely account for Saquon Barkley, who's been, oh my, I'm about to sneeze. No, we're good.
Oh, no.
Who's been miles away the best running back so far this season. People were talking about him potentially being in that MVP race, and I think he deserves it because he's been a phenomenal running back, one of the best running backs I've watched play like myself in a while, because you don't typically see this in this day from a running back, and you're seeing it from two. You're seeing it from Derrick Henry, and you're seeing it from Saquon. So 2 running backs who switched teams this offseason, having career years and phenomenal seasons with their new teams. And the Eagles are rolling. They're sitting at 9-2, and they're definitely a team that could easily go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC, and a team that can contend just like the Lions. So,
yeah, I think with this game, Saquon should throw him. I think he put himself in MVP discussion for sure. The guy has 223 carries on the season for just about 1,400 yards on the ground, adding 10 touchdowns, and that's just on the ground. So, yeah, he's playing lights out football. He's getting a ton of work. Hopefully, he stays healthy for the Eagles, so he can make they can make a run here towards the playoffs. And yeah, they're a tough football team. They figured out their defense, and they're playing really good football. So the Rams aren't dead in their division. Obviously, that's wide open still. So yeah, they'll have a chance here to make it up. And as long as they have Stafford, Kupp, and Puka, I think they have a shot. So
definitely. They're still technically in that division race because that division is so up in the air and definitely struggling, like we just talked about. So, all right. And then the final game of the week, the Ravens and the Chargers on Monday Night Football. The Chargers started this one out kind of dominantly. They scored on their opening drive. They were playing amazing defense. And all of a sudden in the second quarter, something just flipped. And the Ravens remembered how to play offense, and the Chargers forgot how to play football. And the Ravens won this one 30-23. But watching the game, it was a little bit of more of a blowout than the score tells. The Chargers kicked a field goal at the very end of the game, but Justin Herbert had an average game, I would say. Didn't do anything spectacular. Threw for 218 yards. Didn't throw a touchdown or a pick. He ran in a touchdown. Lamar Jackson only threw for 177 yards, but threw 2 touchdowns and ran one in as well. Derrick Henry continues to do Derrick Henry things with 140 rushing yards. He didn't get into the end zone for, I think, the first time in like 11 straight games, but he did get in the end zone actually, but it was called back. So, but they're just, a big win for the Ravens. This was a big game because the Chargers, they're sitting at 7-3. If they win, they could stay on pace to potentially take that division from Kansas City, but it's looking like the Chargers, they're definitely going to make the playoffs. Most likely, it's looking like now as for sure a wild card team. And the Ravens, With the Steelers' loss this week and the Ravens' big win, that puts the two teams that much closer now and puts their rematch in a couple of weeks massive. So if the Ravens can go and beat the Steelers in a couple of weeks, they could take that division. And so the Ravens, they're a team that I know they have a couple of losses, but a team that has definitely been Super Bowl contenders all season, and a team that is probably one of the favorites because on any given day they can score 30 or 40 on a team. Their offense just is so dynamic. It's just a matter of will they show up that day or not. So,
yeah, I think the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry combo is just too tough to stop. You might be able to stop him for part of the game, and then all of a sudden, with 2 minutes to go, if Derrick Henry breaks a 60-yard run or Lamar Jackson, scrambles for, 25-yard run or hits a deep ball to Rashad Bateman or Zay Flowers or hits a big play to Mark Andrews. So they're just so tough to hold down. The Chargers did it for, a little bit at the beginning, but the Ravens, they figure it out. So we'll see. This feels like a very similar team as the last year's Ravens team, but honestly without as great of a defense. So we'll see. Yeah, I think my prediction for the Chargers, though, I think they're a good football team, and my prediction for them is I think Justin Herbert is going to win his first playoff game this year. So I think they make the playoffs, and I think they win a game in the wild card round. And I think Justin Herbert is a really good quarterback. I think that he just hasn't been – he's got the stats, right? He's got all this, all the nice stats, the, really good-looking tape. But his big thing is how can he win the big game? And they were up in that one playoff game, but, back against the Jaguars, up big, and then coaching made some questionable decisions, and they ended up blowing it. So I don't think that will happen again. The Chargers defense is obviously also really a lot better than it used to be. So Jim Harbaugh has really come and, shake things up as much as people didn't think he would, or that maybe that they didn't have enough weapons to throw to, or even good running backs. And they did just lose J.K. Dobbins, who's actually going to be out for a little bit. So we'll see. But I think that Justin Herbert is that guy to elevate everyone else and make them better. So yeah, it should be fun down the stretch.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to jump into our speed ran picks for week 13. But before we do that, let me tell you about our friends at K&A Construction. K&A Construction has been serving the Northeast Ohio community for over 20 years, specializing in composite decks. K&A Construction takes the time and effort to provide the service and product that you deserve for your home. You can call K&A Construction today at 330-575-2465 for a free estimate. Again, that's 330-575-2465. You can also visit kfdex.com, which is linked in the description below. K&A Construction, let us build your dream backyard. All right, so Quinton, how Austin and I have done it, we have a pick'em that we keep track of for the season, and whoever loses has to do a punishment. So a couple seasons ago, Austin had to spend, 24 hours in a Waffle House, and every waffle he ate took an hour off of his time, which was a great time. And the punishment for this season is the loser has to go to a fancy restaurant and go on a date with a giant teddy bear. And so if you're curious, also people listening, if you're curious, I am currently beating Austin 120 to 106. So it's looking like Austin's going to be spending a date with a teddy bear, but we can go ahead and make our picks. I'm sure. What? Is
he going to go to the Hartfield Kitchen? Is that fancy enough or a little fancier?
That would be funny. We don't know where we're going to go. That's actually a good idea. But so you're going to go ahead and make your picks too. And sorry, Austin, if you're listening, but he's probably going to make better picks than you because a lot of people are teaming to make better picks than you because you're struggling this season. But
I apologize in advance,
3 straight
Austin.
weeks. We can what?
I said I apologize in advance to Austin if I mess up his record even more.
That's all right. All righty. So we're going to go with the first game, Thursday night, I guess this one's at noon. This is the big traditional Thanksgiving game. The Lions, who always lose on Thanksgiving, but they got a good team this year. They're playing Chicago. I think it's going to be a blowout. I got the Lions in this one.
Yeah, I think the Bears are playing better, but I don't think good enough to beat the Lions. I think it'll be closer than I don't think it'll be quite a blowout, but I do think the Lions win the game.
Mm-hmm. This next game, I think, will be a blowout. Or not a blowout, I'm sorry. That's the wrong word. I think it's going to be a snooze fest. I probably will take a nap during this game. We got Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants going to Dallas to take on Cooper Rush and the Cowboys. So that might be one of the most boring Thursday games. I can't get my words straight right now. Thanksgiving games in a long time. I got the Cowboys winning this one. The Giants weren't good with Daniel Jones, and now they got Tommy Cutlets there, and he's not much better.
Yeah, and Tommy Cutlets might actually be a little banged up, so we'll see if Drew Lock gets a start. But regardless, yeah, I mean, I think the Cowboys haven't won a game at home this year. I'm gonna say first win at home this year for the Cowboys. Cooper Rush gets it done.
Yeah, Giants are really, really struggling, but this game's good. This is a good Thanksgiving game. This one's at night. We got the Dolphins going to Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. I got the Packers in this one. They're rolling. I know the Dolphins are also rolling, but going to Lambeau at night, that's a hard place to play, especially for a team like Miami that would be used to that 150-degree weather in Florida, because who in the world decides to live in Florida?
Yeah, not a lot of people. That's why I moved, but no. Yeah, this should be a fun one. I don't know the weather in Green Bay this weekend. I'm assuming. I mean, it's going to be cold here in where I live in Pittsburgh, and so I'm assuming it will be even colder up north and a little further north. So, yeah, I'll probably take the Packers, but I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins won somehow. But I will take the Packers.
Yeah, that one should be a good game. I'm excited to watch that one. Next game, the Black Friday game. They did this last year, and not a lot of people watched it, so they decided, let's do it again. But they got the Raiders going to Kansas City. I don't think there's much to say about this one. I got the Chiefs.
Yeah, there's almost no way, especially when the Raiders are egging Patrick Mahomes on with the Kermit the Frog stuff. It's personal, and he's going to put them where they belong. So, yeah, it's the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. This one is probably big for you. You're probably going to have your eyes on this game for sure. The Chargers going to Atlanta. Atlanta trying to hold on to the NFC South lead. But I actually think the Chargers are going to go in off of a loss and beat a sputtering Atlanta team off of a bye.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I think the Chargers do come in to Atlanta and beat the Falcons. And yeah, I think never forget the Falcons, the 28-3 blown lead in the Super Bowl. So we're hoping, as Bucs fans, that they keep blowing this division lead they had. But I do think the Chargers, coming off the loss, have a little something to play for. So I think they win.
Mm-hmm. This next one, Pittsburgh, who's sitting at 8-3 off of a tough loss to the Browns, traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals off of a bye. I'm actually going to take the Bengals in this one. I know their record is sitting at 4-7, but their offense is so good, and their defense has been the issue all season. And Pittsburgh doesn't have the most dynamic offense, and so if their offense can continue to play dynamic, incredible football, and their defense just plays all right, I mean, against the Steelers offense, I think that could be enough to surprise the Steelers and go ahead and win this one in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the Steelers this week. I don't like them at all, even though I live in Pittsburgh. I think that this will be an old-fashioned AFC North. I don't think this is going to be a shootout game like some of them have been so far. I think it'll be similar to the Steelers-Browns game last week. So I think the Steelers win a close one, but yeah, I'm going to have to take the Steelers on this one.
Next game, I don't think deserves much conversation either, but the Texans, who, we talked about earlier, not the team we expected them to be this season, but to travel to Jacksonville. Jacksonville, we all know, really struggling this year. It might be a little closer than we think, because I guess it's a divisional game, and the Texans have made every single game that they should dominate a close game, but I still think the Texans are going to be fine, and I think they'll get this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the Texans. Jaguars have played teams tough at home, but I think the Texans get a get right game here and get back on track.
The next game, this one has potential to be a really good game. You know, it's a big game in terms of importance for the Cardinals. They travel to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. You know, the Cardinals can't afford to lose a bunch of games because Seattle is sitting, they got the tiebreaker and the same record in that division right now. So, unfortunately, I am going to pick the Vikings. It's hard to go travel to Minnesota and play in that dome. And their team's also just rolling right now, sitting at 9-2 with Sam Darnold rolling. Maybe Danny Dimes will play in this game. Maybe he'll make an appearance. But I think the Vikings are win this one.
Yeah, I'd like to take the Cardinals, and if Arizona was at home, I'd probably take the Cardinals. But with the Vikings, Minnesota being a tough place to play, that crowd with the skull chant really gets rocking. So I'm going to take the Vikings and the Fighting Sam Darnolds.
Colts travel to New England. Colts off of kind of a beat down to the Lions, but that's kind of expected. And the Patriots off of a beat down to the Dolphins. So both teams need a get right game, and I think the Colts will get that. Yeah.
I think I'm taking the Patriots this time. I think the Patriots play better at home, and I think the Colts might overlook them a little bit, and I think the Patriots are able to pull this one out and win a close game at home. So yeah, give me the Patriots.
All right, and then this game, Seahawks traveling to the Jets. I think the Seahawks are going to win this one. I haven't been high on the Jets all season, and their whole team is sputtering. They've lost the locker room. Aaron Rodgers has lost his team. Things are going so south for the Jets, and I think the Seahawks will win this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I think I'll take the Seahawks as well. The Jets are just one of the most confusing teams to watch, and yeah, I think the Seahawks will come in and take care of business and keep it going, and for their quest of the NFC South or NFC West.
Yeah. And then the Titans traveling to Washington to face the sputtering Commanders. I think this is the get-right game for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels gets back in the win column, and a much-needed win for them to try to squeak into the playoffs now, which is crazy to say because a couple weeks ago it looked like they were locks to definitely make the playoffs and contend for that division.
Yeah, I think with some of the injuries the Commanders have at running back and just the way the Titans seem to play teams, I think it's a closer game than people think, but I do think Will Levis will make a Will Levis play and essentially hand the Commanders the game. And so I do think the Commanders get a W here.
All right, and then we got our game, I guess. I just lost it all. Where are we at? Okay. Tampa Bay traveling to Carolina. The Panthers coming off of that surprising game against the Chiefs. What do you think is going to happen in this one? I'll let you go first.
As a Bucs fan, this is a trap game because they're probably looking past them. I'm actually kind of worried, but I'll be worried every week probably until the end of the year. But I think it's a lot closer game than what the Bucs just did against the Giants. And yeah, but I do think the Bucs pull out the win because I don't think the Panthers defense can stop the Bucs offense because they're for sure they're a top 10 offense in the league right now, maybe even top 5. I haven't looked at since this week, and I think the Bucs defense will control Bryce Young just enough. So
I think this one's going to be a higher scoring game for sure. But like you said, the Panthers defense couldn't stop the Chiefs last week, and the Chiefs offense hasn't been much of anything so far this season. The Bucs offense has probably been a lot better than the Chiefs this point of the season. But if they couldn't stop the Chiefs like that, I think the Bucs will be fine on offense. I think the Bucs will win this one, but I think it will be high scoring, and I'm excited to see how Bryce Young looks this next week. And I have no clue why that's a 4:00 kickoff. That makes no sense to me.
Couldn't tell you. Someone's got to play it for.
I guess. All right, next game we got the Rams traveling to New Orleans. The Saints have won 2 in a row with their new coach, with their new interim head coach. But I think the Rams are good enough to go ahead and win this game in New Orleans.
Yeah, I think the Rams need this one. Just they got fond memories of them going to the Saints, playing that one NFC Championship game back, in what 2020, whatever year the Rams went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Patriots, but with Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. So, I think the Rams get it done. I think they got too many weapons, and I don't think the Saints are very good. So we'll go with the Rams.
Mm-hmm. All right, then we got 3 more. We got the Eagles going to Baltimore, and I'm actually going to pick Baltimore in this game. Lamar Jackson has only lost 1 game to an NFC team in his career, and that team was to Danny Dimes and the Giants a couple of years back, which is weird to think about. But I got the Ravens in this one. They definitely need this win to stay in the tight battle for the NFC or AFC North, I guess. And the Eagles, they still are contending for that first round bye, but I think that Baltimore, I don't know. I feel it in this game. I trust their coach, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. They're an unstoppable duo. I guess it's the battle of the 2 best running backs who left their teams this season and have just completely exploded so far this season. So that should be a good game.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. You said you chose the Ravens?
I did.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take the Eagles. I think. I'm gonna go with the Eagles. I think they're Baltimore, not a great rush defense. If Saquon gets loose again, I think it could be pretty devastating for the Ravens. So I think it'll be a really good game. This is probably one of the best games of the week, and but I will take the Eagles on the road in a tough place to play in Baltimore.
All right, and then the Sunday Night Football game, I wish this would get flexed out. Well, I guess if Purdy plays, it should be a good game. But 49ers travel to Buffalo. I think Buffalo wins this game, and I think Buffalo kind of ends this 49ers' hopes and dreams for the season and kind of ties the knot and says, yeah, you're done. You're not making the playoffs. So I think Buffalo wins this one.
Yeah, I saw a report that this is a game that could have severe weather as far as snow.
Sweet. I hope so.
Yeah, so we might have a massive snow game in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Bills. Even if Purdy plays, I think the Bills, in those conditions, the way they can run the ball, and Josh Allen just is actually, not turning the ball over a ton this year. So, yeah, I'll take the Bills, and the 49ers, I think, will be limping back to San Francisco after this one.
Mm-hmm. And then the Monday Night Football game, Browns going to Denver in the altitude. I think Denver wins this one and continues their quest for the playoffs. They're kind of rolling as of late, and they look good. So I know the Browns coming off of a big win last week, but I think the Broncos win this one.
Yeah, as much as I love the Jameis Winston-led Browns, I don't think they can Jameis Winston has a couple of kryptonites, one being Sean Payton. So I think he will get the Broncos right, and we will see a couple picks thrown to Broncos players from Jameis. So, yeah, I'll take the Broncos as well.
Sweet. All right, we're going to take a very, very short break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes to do our starts of the week for fantasy football. So we'll be back very shortly. All right, welcome to this week's segment of the week. This week, we're actually going to do a segment we have not done before. So no Hail Mary, no matchup madness, no nothing like that. But we're going to do our fantasy starts of the week because I just called you Austin. Quinton here is what I would like to call a fantasy football expert. Like I said at the beginning of the show, he told me to target certain guys in my dynasty league, and it all paid off pretty well for me. So I think it's only fair to talk about some fantasy football here. So we're going to talk quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end starts of the week. So I don't know. You want to go ahead and just start off with your QB start of the week, or I guess whatever position you want to start with.
Yeah, we'll start at quarterback. I'll say this about my so-called expertise: every blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. So
I'm just talking you up a little bit. You got to roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the compliment, but yeah, I'll go with my start of the week this week. You might not like it, Caden, but I am going to go Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Carolina. They've given up a ton of points to the quarterback position, aren't a great defense, and it is still technically a revenge game for Baker from being in Carolina, being put as the practice squad defensive lineman a couple times on the scout team. So not even playing him at quarterback position. So I think it will mean a little bit more to Baker. He's got Mike Evans back. Mike Evans eats against the Panthers historically. So yeah, give me Baker Mayfield in this week.
You know, I really agree with you there. I had Baker, and then I was like, you know what? There's a really likely chance you're going to pick Baker. So I changed mine. So unfortunately, I do agree with you there. I actually have Sam Darnold going up against the Cardinals this week. Aside from we talked about on the podcast, aside from a couple weeks ago, that week against Jacksonville where he didn't throw a touchdown and threw 3 picks, Sam Darnold's been a very consistent 20 points per game quarterback for fantasy football, and he's going against a Cardinals defense that doesn't have much of a pass rush, doesn't have much of a defense at all, but they have a little bit more of a dynamic offense. He's at home in the Dome in Minnesota, going up against what should be a high-scoring Cardinals team, should be a higher-scoring game. The Cardinals can score a lot of points, and I think Sam Darnold just is consistently getting you 20, and I think if he just gets a couple more passing touchdowns, if this is a little bit more of a shootout, he has potential to get a little more points this week. So, but I do agree with the Baker Mayfield take.
Interesting choice. Yeah, that could be Sam Darnold could do some things in his dome. So not a bad pick.
All right, what's your pick for running back start of the week?
Running back, I was searching a little bit more for this one, but I did settle on Kyren Williams versus the Saints this week. The Saints are giving up the third most points to the running back position on the season. If you recall, when the Bucs played the Saints back in Week 6, I want to say, some guy named Sean Tucker, the third string for the running back for the Bucs, won NFC Offensive Player of the Week because he had just about 200 total yards of offense by himself. And so I think Kyren Williams will, maybe not have almost 200 yards of total offense, but I think you will be very happy if he's on your fantasy team for this week and in your starting lineup.
I like that pick. He scores touchdowns, it seems, almost every single week. So my running back start of the week is Devon Achane versus the Packers on Thanksgiving. Ever since Tua has came back, I mean, I know it depends on your scoring systems, but at least in my league, ever since Tua's been back, he's been the running back 2, the running back 2, the running back 24, but then the running back 6 and the running back 6. He goes up against the Packers defense that they're a little bit better against the run, but Devon Achane makes a lot of his fantasy work in the passing game. He gets a lot of receptions and takes them in for sometimes breaks away for long touchdowns, but he gets a lot of short yardage catches from Tua and takes it in for a touchdown. And against the Packers, probably going to be a little bit of a colder game, so maybe can't throw the ball as deep, a little bit more checkdowns, a little bit more runs. And against the Packers, that should be a high-scoring game as well. So I think Devon Achane has potential to be that top 5 running back and definitely a start of the week against the Packers.
Yeah, I have Devon Achane in one of my leagues that I care about the most, so I'm gonna believe you on that one and hope that he goes for 20 plus. So
I sure hope so too, because I got him in mind. So next one, we got the wide receiver. What do you think for that?
Yeah, this one was. I was trying not to pick people that were just on my team, which I guess the only one. I don't technically have Kyren in any league, but I do have Baker in a league, so it's been nice. But I'm gonna pick someone that's also on one of my teams, but has a really great matchup. I'm gonna go Nico Collins versus the Jaguars. They played back earlier this year, and he went 12 catches for 151 yards and a touchdown the last time they played. I think his biggest fantasy performance of the year. So I think he's going to, the Jags will, they play a ton of man. Nico's tough to match up against. And so I think Nico eats, and CJ Stroud gets back on track that way too.
Mm-hmm. This one was definitely my most questionable pick, maybe a little bit more risky. I probably, if you have some guys like A.J. Brown over this guy or things like that, definitely would consider those guys over him. But this is more of a, if you're in need of a flex or you're struggling between something and you have to, definitely start this guy with caution. But I think DJ Moore has potential to do a lot on Thursday against, what just happened to my laptop? Against the Lions. I know the Lions are a dominant team on offense and defense, but I think the Bears will probably get down pretty early in this game. They're going to be trailing for all of or a majority of this game, so they're going to be passing. DJ Moore has, at least last week, got back to form, caught 7 passes, all 7 of his targets had a touchdown. So Caleb Williams looked a little bit better last week against a pretty good Vikings defense. So I think that if they continue to just pass because they're going to be struggling and trailing in this game, DJ Moore should be that number 1 option for you. And he should just, rack up some receptions and hopefully get in the end zone. So that's a little bit more of a risky one, I know, but I think he has potential to be a Thanksgiving. I feel like there's always a couple of Thanksgiving dudes that just randomly explode. So he has potential, I would say.
Yeah, I actually like that pick a lot. I got DJ. I have to decide if I'm starting him in a league versus a JSN versus a Jets, or even a Rachaad White versus Carolina. So it's I'm losing sleep over that decision right now. But I could see very well the Lions are a good defense, but play a lot of man-to-man, and if DJ could find some separation, which is very possible, he could have a big day. So it's a good pick.
All right, and then the tight ends. What do you got for the tight end start of the week?
Tight end, instead of going with guys who've just been dominating every week, I'm going to go out on a little bit. I guess it's not that big of a limb, but I think it's definitely my most shaky pick. But I'm going to take a TJ Hawkinson versus those Arizona Cardinals. So you have Sam Darnold. I chose TJ Hawkinson. So I said it earlier, but he played his most snaps since coming off of IR last week, and Arizona is stingy kind of against the tight ends for fantasy football, but so was Chicago, and TJ put up a huge day against Chicago. So I think he stays in the Flames, and he probably could get in the end zone on this one at home. So I'm going TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, mine, you might like this one a little bit. I have Cade Otton going up against the Panthers. Ever since kind of Chris Godwin's gone out, Otton has been a great fantasy tight end. It has been great for the Bucs. He's gotten tons of receptions, gotten in the end zone, tons of yards. He's just been consistent for fantasy football. He's going up against a Panthers defense that, like we talked about, is just Swiss cheese right now, and they leave that middle of the field very open. And I think you can have a tight end easily run around in there. You saw it last week. Travis Kelce had tons of potentials. Like, Mahomes didn't throw to him, but he was open in the middle of the field a ton. Noah Gray, their backup tight end, actually had a phenomenal game in the middle of the field. So I think Cade Otton has a chance to just eat in that middle of the field. And if it is a more higher scoring game, I think he has potential to explode. So, yeah. And that's going to do it, I think.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think that's going to do it for this week of K&A Football. Quinton, thank you so much for coming. This was a lot of fun. I know we've talked about having you on for a while now, and if you are questioning any fantasy football questions, hopefully all of these starts and sits from both of us can help a little bit. And if they're wrong, we're not experts, so you can't get too mad at us. But yeah, Quinton, thank you for coming on. It was a lot of fun.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. This was a good time. I'll be happy to come back anytime you need me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll let you know. And maybe next time we can have me, you, and Austin get multiple perspectives from a Bucs fan, Browns fan, and Panthers fan. So Baker Mayfield's been on all 3 teams, so that would maybe be a weird dynamic.
Yep, that would be quite interesting. So
awesome. Well, hope everybody enjoys their Thanksgiving. Spend time with your family and watch some good football games, hopefully some good football games. And we will see you guys next week.